It's Kim. Hi there. I have received this testimonial recently from a woman who had all kinds of pain and illness and was completely devastated, couldn't even barely walk. And when she shared with me what a breakthrough it was to be introduced to this work, to have an opening to let life come through her body and begin to walk again, one of the things she said was, I'm not really sure I want to share this with anyone. I don't really want to be seen. I can see I'm still hiding in my life, but it's really scary to come out with this and let anyone know what I really struggled with, what this was really like for me, where I'm at now, what the process was like. And I thought, okay, we've got to let ourselves be seen, and I have to start with me. And there's been a lot of this in the last month, I guess, for me, of like really being willing to be seen at a level I didn't even realize how I was hiding. And this video, I've started to share this like 4 different times, and it's like not coming out and not flowing. And I'm like, what's it gonna take to share this story? Many, many years back when when I first had my awakening, it was not pretty. The process over decades of figuring this out, sorting this out, like kind of re-equilibrating a new consciousness was really, really messy. And what happened was one of the things I was most ashamed of for so many years, being mentally unstable, like I couldn't really get it together and kind of ground back into the old reality that I knew was not really the reality. It was like, I've been awakened to so much more. How can I buy back into this? Having severe anxiety and panic for years, being put into a mental hospital because my parents didn't know what to do with me. They thought I was gonna potentially hurt myself. When I had my awakening at 16 years old, it was not under these celestial, divine kind of conditions of what you'd think of as divine. And I thought it was this big wrongness for so long. And even though it has created so much in my life of being fully alive and seeing things most people still really don't see, and being able to live my life from a deeper space of awareness, there was still this layer on it of like wrongness and shame. And so many of us have bought into this in our culture, that there's this wrongness to not being like everybody else, to not being like the mainstream, to not operating that way in this quote unquote normal, which isn't normal at all. It's actually really pathologic, the way most people are operating, where we're not awakened, where we're just kind of taking the status quo, believing what we're taught, believing what we're told, and trying to fit in line, trying to fall in line, trying to do it the way we're told, but secretly thinking like, oh, I'm not doing a great job. I'm not like everybody else. Let me try to pull it off. I tried to pull it off for decades. And when I told my friend Allie this story, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, of what really happened, and I had this awakening experience. I used marijuana with my boyfriend, and being super chemically sensitive, like that was wicked intense. I didn't know I was chemically sensitive, but boy, it was the only thing I can equate it to is when people talk about an ayahuasca ceremony and the awakening that happens there, and you can perceive everything at the same time. All the veil is removed and you're just really aware of all of it. And that awakening was unthinkably disturbing, because the whole foundation of my reality of where I thought life was all about, what I was taught life was about, I'm, a separate individual being. This is good and bad, right and wrong. I've got to do the good thing and avoid the bad thing. Boy, that all fell away. And I literally could not buy back in and like pull it off like, yeah, everything's fine, because it was so not fine. And I didn't have any spiritual support at all, but I didn't really have anyone in my world who understood anything about what was really going on for me. I thought I must be possessed by the devil. I thought I did this bad thing and I'm being punished, and I'll be punished and haunted for the rest of my life. And I really worked hard to try to do the good thing. It was a nightmare. Even though it was so profoundly amazing, like I felt like I'd connected with God. I felt like I had touched divinity. But then there was this whole confusion around it. Like it was super disoriented. And it wasn't until years later, I mean, I'd already kind of figured this out, learned breathing techniques to help my body get out of fear and anxiety, because when you're re-equilibrating a new foundation, it is earth-shattering, and your body literally gets destabilized and fight or flight because it feels that rapid change. You've come into a whole new reality. Your body registers that. That's what's happening for so many people living in chronic anxiety. But we don't know that in our society. We just make it bad and wrong and even shameful. And so for me, learning, breathing and learning to the mind-body connection and help my body move through this fluidly was essential, but I learned it on my own. I had to figure it out. So years later, I was telling my friend Allie about this whole thing and what happened and how I have had these extrasensory abilities and the ability to hear people think, to tune into frequencies, to know what's going on in many, many deeper levels. And yes, I've applied this to what I'm doing in medicine, which is amazing. Definitely is what I was put here to do. But I shared the story with her about how suddenly I could see things and hear things and know things and what my life has been like since. And she was just so touched. And she's like, Kim, you have to share that story. And I was like, hell no, not sharing that story. I was put in a mental hospital, like something was wrong with me. I was broken and there was all this shame around it. Like, if I ever told that story, what will people think of me? Especially when I was still being this doctor person, like, no. The most important thing is your credibility and you've got to hold it together and show that you're like this upstanding citizen and that you've got you pulling it off. Totally not what was actually happening, but I was still locked into that world. And I couldn't imagine ever sharing this because there was still so much shame in it. So years later, my friend Molly sent me this email about the shamanistic view of mental illness. And I had known on some level that this destabilization that we call mental illness was something more profound integrating. It was a profound like falling away of the old perspective and an integrating of something new. But I didn't really, it was like, really? Is this okay? But when I read that article, it really spoke to me. I understood for the first time, like, this is a sacred awakening. There is nothing wrong and shameful about how this has happened or even the way it initiated. Like, was I wrong to smoke marijuana with my boyfriend? Because in my culture, that was the wrongest. You're this big loser if you go near drugs. What kind of kid are you? Disobeying my parents. But I could begin to see that this was a divine intervention. That choice did not happen out of total randomness. There was an awakening that was meant to happen for me, for my world, and whatever level, and it was not pleasant. But I did move through into a much higher perspective, a much higher frequency, a much higher realm of my existence through that experience, through that awakening. And so to receive it, just receive it on every level as right instead of wrong, that this happened, that it went the way it did, that my life journey has been what it's been, not so always so pretty and even and smooth sailing, but that it has been divine. And this is when we can really begin to embrace all of our gifts, all of our purpose, all of life, that life is on our side, when we begin to see what's right about this that I'm not getting and really embrace how the journey has been, what we're made of, to let shame fall away. That's usually the last layer, especially when I work with practitioners who have amazing capabilities for healing, but then there's this shame and wrongness of like, whoa, if people really saw how weird I actually am, I don't think that's gonna fly. Well, it's time for all of us to like be in our weird self, and we have to embrace it, and we have to accept it, and we have to see that it's divine and beautiful and sacred, and it's a gift. And only then can we really embody it and live it and be it. So I wanted to share this, which has been like one of the greatest fears and shames throughout my life, that as I'm coming out of the spiritual closet and willing to be totally seen, like, put it all out there. I have not been in the straight and narrow path of what anyone would consider normal. And I'm really proud of who I am. And you can be too. And it's time for all of us to let ourselves really be seen and like take off the mask, take off the layers, and let yourself, who you're here to be, shine through. That is the power that everyone is looking for, that everyone is starving for, that the whole world really needs from us, and that will be most fulfilling to yourself, to ourselves as individuals. So being in that freedom of embracing, I embrace all of who I am fully and completely. Yeah, there it is. I shared it. All right, well, I'm sending you love, and yeah, I would definitely welcome comments you have on this about maybe how it resonates for you and beginning to see parts of yourself that you're ready to unveil as well. And I'm so excited to see that in you. All right, lots of love, and I'll see you soon.